it all fall just right. Scientific publishing made breeze. Connecting sky with cheese. Shining bright with Glintplus trusted source. Social economic force. Trains to fields with ease. Unlocking keys. With Glintplus Global Solutions unite. Inspired by journey day and night. Grateful for the path we've known. In the world of academia we've grown. From chemistry to biotech bright. Many data, thrilling sight. Agriculture solutions galore. Glintplus opens many a door. Older memories we made with glee. Quality articles open access, we find the key. Grateful hearts, inspiration soar. Plus you're the one we adore. World try to incite. Agriculture solutions galore. Glintplus opens many a door. Older memories we made with glee. Quality articles open access, we find the key. The one we adore.
You're welcome back, everybody. That is what we do in Glintplus Academy. We have 4 different types of journals, which is being patronized. We want to employ you, we want to enjoin you to also patronize us for your quality paper, and you can be sure that we'll treat it as much as possible. We do other services that are composed in that clip that you have just watched. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the reading of the guest speaker's citation. This will be taken by one of our members in the technical crew, and that is in person of Miss Ayomide. Ayomide, over to you, please. The citation of the speaker.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, Dr. Abiola. It's nice to meet you, and good afternoon to everyone who is watching this live stream. Or good morning in wherever part of the country you're situated in. I'll be introducing Dr. Abiola in Akingbemisilu. Dr. Akingbemisilu Abiola was born in Ondo Town, Ondo State, Nigeria. He holds a NC certificate in biology and chemistry from Abiola College of Education, Ondo, a Bachelor of Science Education degree in biology from Obafemi Awolowo University, ACEU, a Master of Education and a Doctor of Philosophy in Educational Technology from the University of Ibadan. Dr. Abiola is a senior lecturer in the Department of Science Education at Adekunle Ajasin University, Akingbemisilu, in Ondo State, Nigeria. He is a registered member of Educational Media and Technology Association of Nigeria, ENTAN, formerly known as NAEMT. He is a patron to the following organizations: 1. The Nigerian Red Cross, AAUA Detachment; 2. The Nigeria's Girl Guide, Holy Trinity Church Company, Akingbemisilu; 3. The Scripture Union Student Fellowship, AAUA Chapter. Dr. Abiola is a versatile, prolific, and dynamic public speaker. He is the president of Abiola Educational and Communication Consultants, Nigeria. He is a researcher par excellence, an academic of repute, and a devout Kingdom companion. Dr. Abiola is the initiator, host, and presenter of Mind Clinic, an inspirational radio program on Radio AAUA 90.3 FM. The program has been aired for over 6 years. He has several articles in many reputable international and national publications. He has presented length articles in many international conferences, both virtually and physically. Dr. Abiola has been keynote speaker in many conferences in Europe, Africa, and other continents of the world. He is married to Temitope, and the union is blessed with children. And with this, I welcome Dr. Abiola to take his presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to particularly appreciate the organizers of this live stream webinar, Researchment Academy. My name is Abiola Akingbemisilu. I thank you for the privilege to share my thoughts with you today, my esteemed audience. It's afternoon here in Nigeria, and so we're looking at the title, Synergy of Theory, Data, and Creativity in Formulating and Validating Innovative Research Hypotheses. I'll be using this outline. Please, let's move. My outline, after doing a preamble of why we need research, I will then look at what research hypothesis. A good number of our participants today have indicated interest in hypothesis, and we're going to dwell on that significantly. We look at how to validate research hypothesis, then major concept in that topic, which is theory, data, creativity, would also be checked, and I call that TDC. And we will look at TDC in formulating research hypotheses, as well as TDC in validating research hypotheses. And then I will conclude the presentation. I hope you are good to go with me. Now, let's start by saying that research is needed in every field of life. And when research are poorly conducted, you get poor results. So research flies on two wings, and those wings are named or christened variables. There are two of them, independent variable and dependent variable. In the course of this work, when I was discussing research very well, I'm going to talk about that. But I want to tell you, my esteemed audience today, that the engine of every research is the hypothesis. When the hypotheses are not well constructed, there will be no direction for the study. And in the 21st century, it is important that we state our hypothesis in a very innovative way, such that the theory and the data are creatively connected. And that's why we are looking at synergy. We want to show relationship or association between variables, or when there are more than two among variables, and also how data, theory, all this make up a very good research. So let's start by looking at what an hypothesis is. Some people see hypothesis as a guess. Some sees it as prediction. To a layman, hypothesis is a scientific statement which is yet to be confirmed. Taking it further, we could say it's an assumption or an idea that is proposed for a test. So when there is an hypothesis, you are going to test the hypothesis. It must be a precise or a testable statement that researchers put forward to predict what the outcome of their study will be. It usually involves proposing relationship between variables or among variables. And the two wings that I started with are the dependent variable and the is checking what can be changed, which is the independent variable, on what can be measured, which is dependent variable. There's what we also call intervening variable. It's a form of independent variable. In some cases, this may also be subject to changes. So hypothesis must be good if the research will bring good results. It is more than just a guess. It has to do with getting the best out of the entire test. So let's go to how do we then formulate a good hypothesis? How can we formulate a good hypothesis? A good number of people have indicated interest in this, and I'll take my time a little to see how we can do justice to that. The first thing is this: the statement must be simple, must be clear, and must be focused. You don't encourage ambiguity. Statements that are ambiguous, different to understand or identify, should not be in the hypothesis. So the first thing is that, is the statement clear? Is it simple? Is it focused? Secondly, we want to ask if the hypothesis is reflecting the title. So when you see a research title and you see a research hypothesis, there must be a reflection. The hypothesis should reflect what the title is, especially the very first hypothesis in every study. So if I check the title of the study and it's looking at impacts of global warming on life expectancy of people, you want to check life expectancy of people and global warming vis-a-vis in the hypothesis. These two variables must be there, and it must be clear and simple. The third thing I want to say is that the hypothesis must be testable. What we do to an hypothesis is we test an hypothesis. So if it is not testable, if it's just a statement that is not asking relationship between variables, then it's not testable. Next is, does the hypothesis include both dependent and independent variable? I said it earlier that your independent variable is that which you can change, and your dependent variable is what you can measure. Therefore, are the two available or present in the hypothesis? So when you're formulating a good hypothesis, you want to be sure that that particular question is answered, that both dependent and independent variables are present in the hypothesis. My esteemed viewers and participants, I need you to go with me, because at the stage in this presentation, I will ask you to give an example or an hypothetical hypothesis in your field, and let's see how well we can connect all that I'm saying. Next is that, can we manipulate these variables without hampering on ethical standards? Now, when we talk about ethical standard, you want to be sure that while you manipulate one of the variables, you are not injuring the process of research. The process of research requires that you have great value for your respondents and you don't use them. You must be sensitive to their emotions, to their religion, to their tribe, you must not discriminate in any way from your instrument of obtaining data. So while you are manipulating your variables, are you sure that you will not tamper on ethics and standards? Gender may be an ethical issue. Religion may be an ethical issue. Tribalism or tribe may be an ethical issue. All these are very important when you are dealing or writing an hypothesis. So the next I want to say, and the last for this time among others, is that, does the hypothesis predict the outcome? Does it predict a relationship? For instance, if I say there is significant relationship between smoking and lung cancer, or there is no significant relationship between smoking and lung cancer. I'm looking at what happens when I take some measurement of smokers and I see the level of their lungs in relation to cancer. So your hypothesis need to answer some of these questions that I've mentioned. It should be very simple, very clear, and very focused. It should reflect the research title. It should be testable. It should not reflect both dependent and independent variable, as well as it should not it should not tamper with people's ethical standards, and then it should predict the outcome. Can we look at my respondents to make an hypothesis in your field, having said these 6 points of mine that will guide you in your hypothesis, could you please drop your comments in the YouTube session, and I'll continue and we'll take all that later. Please feel free to state some hypotheses in your field: geology, geography, education, medicine. Every field of study could state hypotheses because research is a universal thing and everyone is involved in research. So as you do that, let's move on to types of hypotheses. Now, looking at types of hypotheses, there are so many of them. Because I have very limited time, please, while you do your recording or while you do your comment in the YouTube session, let me move ahead so we could cover all that we have for today. Now, let's look at types of hypotheses. There are so many of them. But for the purpose of this discussion, I am bringing three on board. The first is called simple hypothesis. In simple hypothesis is the most common one because it predicts just relationship between single dependent variable and a single independent variable. So you talk about instructional strategy and performance. One instructional strategy, performance. So in the performance of students in this case is the dependent variable, and then the instructional strategy that I vary is the dependent variable. That is an example of hypothesis, simple hypothesis. The second one is complex hypothesis. Now, in complex hypothesis, this predicts relationship between two or more independent variables. Two or more independent and dependent variables. Unlike simple, that is just one dependent variable and one independent variable. Now, directional hypothesis, this specifies the expected direction to be followed in order to determine the relationship between variables and is derived from theory. These three are the three major types of hypothesis. Now, there are forms of hypothesis such as we have a null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, and a number of other forms of hypothesis. But in this discussion, I've been able to look at types of hypothesis. Now, the major focus of my discussion is the synergy of three concepts: theory, data, and creativity. So let's move on so we could get there right on time to do justice to that. Now, looking at validating research hypothesis. Now, by validating hypothesis, one is trying to reduce the risk of failure and be sure that the real value is given to the user when you have made the research. So you want to validate and be sure that the hypothesis is doing what it's supposed to do. Of course, hypothesis is a tentative statement which is put forward that one wants to test. I said it earlier that what you do to an hypothesis is that you test an hypothesis. Apart from testing an hypothesis, you must have two variables that make up the hypothesis, and the two must be contained in your hypothesis. Now, validating it is just trying to see if we can, after testing this hypothesis, will it be rejected? Will it be confirmed? Will it be accepted based on the data collected and the analysis that we have done? So what you do to an hypothesis is you test it by subjecting it to some statistical analysis, and then you have some values. So to test hypothesis, one needs to design a test plan. This test plan should outline the objectives, the variables, the data source, the methods that we use to do the analysis, and the criteria for the validation. Let me say it again. To test hypothesis, you need a test plan that is outlining the objective, the variables, data sources, the methods, and the criteria that are for validation. Now, when you collect and you analyze the data that support or contradict an hypothesis, you use survey or experiment or analysis. And then you interpret and communicate the result that shows whether your hypothesis is validated or rejected. Now, let's move on very quickly to the next Now, I move on. I'm sorry for that breakup. Let's continue from this research hypothesis. Now, I want to say that this includes you checking the accuracy and completeness of the data collection and then the analysis. You must also acknowledge the influencing factors like sample size or the behaviors of the user, and then you propose new or modified hypothesis. Remember, we are talking about validating the hypothesis, and we said we talk about having a blueprint, a test plan that will help us to do the validation. Having collected data, analyzing it, interpreting, communicating it, we need to also evaluate its results. And this includes checking the accuracy and completeness of the data that you have collected and the analysis. Now, when you assess the quality and the reliability of the data, you also identify the limitations and the biases, and then you incorporate feedbacks. All these are essential in refining idea. Now, let me put all that I've said in a simple form. Validation of research hypothesis has to do with a thorough examination of the hypothesis. Testing process to ensure robust conclusions are made. When we have robust conclusion made, we want to have continuous improvement in mankind using research. If there will be improvement in life of man, there must be continuous research. And if there will be continuous research, this research must be done properly. How can research be done properly? Using the major engine of research, and that is hypothesis. So if a hypothesis is not thoroughly validated, if it's not thoroughly checked, thoroughly examined, then there might be a problem in the end of the results. So I think with that, I've been able to do a little justice to the concept of hypothesis. Let's quickly look at the other three variables and then conclude. Theory. The term theory may be used in many sectors of life. Of course, it's a set of principles on which the practice of an activity is based. In secondary school, we have people referring to theory as a kind of scientific statement that have been verified. So a theory is a concept that is acceptable. So you have a theory like a belief, a norm from an environment. So in research, theory plays a vital role. Theory provides explanation. Theory provides understanding. It gives meaningfulness to our research. It's a supposition or a system of idea that is intended to explain something, especially one based on general principles, independent of the things to be explained. So I need you to understand that theory helps to predict facts and to identify unexplored areas of research. Everything that happens in the environment, even in the domestic environment, every society has gotten their own theory. To some, walking barefooted is a theory that will make someone to be sick. So these are assumptions, these are predictions that people have confirmed. There are some other people we call superstition in nature. So the concept theory is supposition. It is tested in the long run. So I want us to have that clear understanding that a theory has to do with so much of it helps us to predict facts and to identify the research areas. Now let's go to the second concept very quickly so that we get a synergy of them, and that's data. What's data? Data is the collection of information gathered by observation, measurement, research, or analysis. Now, in research, data is a form of raw information that have been collected. Some people will call information process data. Yeah, these two words are used interchangeably, but the data is raw. It is being collected. So we want to say the raw sentences, information, presupposition that is collected, observed, or generated to create or to validate original research findings. Data are in different forms. They could be qualitative, they could be quantitative, they could be mixed. So some research where you use a questionnaire are described as qualitative research. And some where you take voicing as an interview are qualitative research. And data may be primary, data may be secondary. And if it's primary, it means you collected it directly. If it's secondary, it means it's already there. You don't have to manipulate, you collect it as it were. So for instance, you are asking for the performance of students in West Africa examination 2020 to 2024. You go to WAEC office and you collect that data. Such a data is called secondary data because you cannot do anything about it. Say you want to look at the performance of students in chemistry and physics between 2020 and 2023. You check them side by side. Such a data that you have collected, it's secondary data. And each of them have their different advantages and disadvantages depending on what you are doing. Now, data depend on the research question. I didn't talk so much about research objective and questions. As a matter of fact, these two concepts metamorphosize into research hypothesis. So depending on the research question or objective or the design, you talk about what kind of data you use. So I've been able to talk about what the theory is, and I've been able to look at what data is. So let's quickly look at the next concept, which is creativity. Creativity is the tendency to generate or recognize great ideas, alternative from what is currently available, possibility that may be useful in solving problems and communicating with others and entertaining oneself in the process. Someone we call creativity to be the use of imagination or original ideas to create something new. That's inventiveness. To be inventive, to be innovative, to get something different from what I've been before. Such is called creativity. And every one of us has gotten a measure of creativity in us. According to Cambridge Academy, as at March 5th, 2024, they define creativity as the ability to produce original, unusual ideas and to make something new or imaginative. You and I have got to be creative in the formulation of our hypothesis. So let's look at the three concepts put together: theory, data, and creativity in formulating innovative research hypotheses. Theory, data, and creativity in formulating innovative research hypotheses. Let's move on. Now, all over the world, researchers are seeking curious questions, asking curious questions, seeking answers, formulating hypotheses. However, whether this research study provides an alternative and effective conclusion depends on how well one develops a good research hypothesis. So how can we incorporate theory, data, and creativity in research hypothesis formulation? I have a number of ways. Number one, state the problem that you're trying to solve. Now, when you state the problem you're trying to solve, it is usually based on data that have been collected before. For example, you feel the instructional strategy that is being used in school is not good enough, and you want to now bring an hypothesis of your own created instructional strategy, say designed video for teaching chemistry. Now, such basis is on existing data. So if you want to formulate innovative research hypothesis, it is important for you to state the problem that you are trying to solve, and you get that problem solidified based on literature or previous records. And that is a form of theory, a form of previous data, beg your pardon. Secondly, when you write your hypothesis, you write it as an if-then statement. What do I mean? If a specific action is taken, then the certain outcome is expected. That's theoretical. If 20 grams of particular kind of chemical is added to substances or particular plants, the growth rate of that plant is likely to increase by 10 millimeters. That's a theory. If then statement is theoretical. If then statement is manipulating certain theory that have been on ground. So when you're writing your hypothesis, when you're formulating innovative hypothesis, please state the problem you are trying to solve. Write the hypothesis as an if-then statement. And thirdly, identify your variables. Now, in identifying variables, you've got to be very creative. And of course, this is where creativity comes in. Not all researches are one way, the way we met them as academics. We've got to be able to manipulate different forms of variables. For instance, I talk about moderator variable or intervening variable being a form of independent variable. And so when you manipulate some moderator variable as an independent variable on a dependent variable, that's a form of creativity. You change, you're trying to manipulate or control or change an independent variable and variables that are dependent on that particular factor. Because of time, let me begin to tidy up so fast by telling you, my esteemed viewers, that when you evaluate assumptions or predictions and evidence rigorously to refine your understanding, you have combined the three. The predictions are theoretical. The assumptions are theoretical. Evidence rigorously to refine your understanding about data and creativity. So this particular fourth idea I'm bringing in is actually a synergy of data, theory, and creativity. We need these ideas if we are going to formulate a very, very innovative hypothesis. Let's do a little activity again. Having said how to incorporate theory, data, and creativity in formulating very innovative hypotheses. Now, different from what you did in the first activity, could you please do another hypothesis now, incorporating the idea of data, the idea of theory, and then the idea of creativity in writing such hypothesis? Please use the YouTube chat to drop your comments. Now, let me continue and try to conclude by looking at how to put theory, data, and creativity in validating research hypotheses. The first thing you have to do in validating these three is design a test plan. In doing a test plan, you want to outline your objectives, you want to outline your variables, your data source, and the method, as well as criteria for validation. So when you use data, theory, and creativity, you do this following to validate your hypothesis. Design a test plan. In that plan, identify your objectives. What are the variables? What data source? Where am I going to obtain my data? Is it from hospital? Is it from the farm? Is it from teachers or students? What's the source of my data? What's the method that I will use to obtain it? And then how will I get that data in? Secondly, talk about collection and analyzing the data that support or contradict your hypothesis. You use a survey to do this or an experiment to do this. Very important, we learn that. And the last is that you must be able to stand on that particular hypothesis while you are validating it. Now, time will not permit me to mention how to, analyze some of our hypotheses when they are tested. But let me quickly mention, there are many ways of validating or analyzing the hypothesis. For instance, when you are looking at whether there is a difference existing between two means, you use a t-test to do such analysis. This cannot compare more than two groups at a time. When you are using t-test, you cannot compare more than two groups at a time. But when you're looking at more than two means at a time, you go ahead to use what we call analysis of variance. And this helps us to compare two variables, two means at the same time. We also look at what we call Pearson product moment correlation. This can be used to show relationship more than two variables. So when you have more than two variables and you want to check relationship between one independent variable and more than one dependent variable, you can use PPMC, Pearson product moment correlation. There are a number of other analyses like regression analysis, which can be used to show relationship between two or more independent variable against one dependent variable. Two or more independent variable and one independent variable, the relationship will be checked using what we call regression analysis. So there are so many other, like when you're looking at a covariance affecting the variables, you can use analysis of covariance. That will partial out the initial differences. For instance, you have a pre-test and you have a post-test, and you want to check the difference in two groups or two or more groups, and you don't want the initial differences, which is the pre-entry responses, to affect them. You do what we call analysis of covariance. That will partial out the effect of the initial differences. So many other means of testing our hypothesis abound. Now, let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen, that research hypotheses are statements that reveals the efficiency and the adequateness of our research intentions. Remember, before you do any research, you get a title and then you get your hypothesis. The construction of innovative research hypotheses requires deliberate symbiotic relationship, symbiotic association, or what we call synergy of relevant theory, adequate data that are collected, and then the originality, which is creativity. These three must be put together when you are doing your hypothesis. Let me appreciate Researchment Academy for bringing this awareness to us today. The time we have is so very, very short to be able to explain nitty-gritty of what an hypothesis is. But I think as we take some questions, we'll be able to look into other areas which are not covered in this discussion. So I want to appreciate Research Academy that has brought the awareness today that when there is a good connect of data, of theory and creativity, we can have a very wonderful outcome in our research. And then such research are very, very useful and acceptable in the environment. I want to thank you very well for listening. I have some of the references of what I have done. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. What a wonderful one. Dr. Akingbemisilu, want to appreciate you most sincerely for coming up, for watering our mouths. I call it mouth watering because the expectations of our participants for today, their expectations are very, very high. Dr. Akingbemisilu, you agree with me that hypothesis formulation is a major problem for a lot of students. Don't let us even talk about the undergraduates. For the PG students, is a lot of issues for them. And you have really done well. I want to believe that with what you have given us today, I think we'll be better off for it. We used to learn that hypothesis is a major pillar in research. A major pillar that if it is crooked, if it is not perfect, then there will be a lot of issues. And I'm happy that you have unbundled the keywords, and you have, as much as possible, as time permits, you have been able to deal with how to formulate research hypotheses. You have taken us from simple to complex and even directional hypotheses. You have also made us understand how important the validation is. That is the process of rejecting or accepting hypotheses. It's a process, and that process must be robust for any researcher to finally say an hypothesis is either accepted or rejected. Finally, the TDC issue becomes very, very important. I think you have been able to bring the theory, data, and creativity issue to the front burner, and that their combination becomes very, very important for anybody to formulate a very good hypothesis. Once again, I want to thank you. I am so much interested in the last part, which I know so many students are waiting for. What tool can be used to test what hypothesis? That area remains very critical, and you're on our WhatsApp group. I want to believe that there will be follow-up questions. Please endeavor to water down, as our participants would like to approach you further to ask one or two questions. I want to believe that participants, we have learned a lot. We have learned when to use the PPMC, when to use the ANOVA, the ANCOVA, the t-test, the regression analysis, and so other. I was actually wishing that we will have a table that specifies that, okay, if this is your variable, if this is what you are testing, then this is the tool that you are supposed to use. Once again, I want to thank you very much. We have a lot of questions, even before now, that has pumped up on the platform. And I appreciate that you have been able to address quite a number of them. We'll open the floor for questions so that we can have one or two before we round up with this time. Please, if you have questions from the audience, let's have them on the platform so that we can announce them. While doing that, Dr. Akingbemisilu, I want you to react to the activity you gave to people. One or two people responded. One of them gave suggested some hypotheses as part of the activity you asked them to do, activity 1. And I could read, somebody gave a particular one. I'm trying to get there. Say there is no significant relationship between socioeconomic characteristics of farmers and can the CEO help me? I don't know where that question is. Have I lost it?
And
somebody brought
their diversity.
And their diversification. Another person also raised another one. Please, can you? Yes, thank you very much. Socioeconomic characteristics, that is talking about age, education, and others, and their diversification. Does it look complete?
Good.
What will be your reaction to this?
Yeah, certainly. Yes. First, I want to emphasize that the language of hypothesis is significant. And it's good that is captured in this, what was put up by Godman Ademola. There is no significant relationship. That captures null form of hypothesis, and significance here is the language of hypothesis. Now, the two variables we are looking at are also embedded. Talking about social economic characteristics, these are independent variables that could be manipulated. And of course, their diversification now is the dependent variable that we want to measure. So when we have diversification in different forms, and we now look at social economic characteristics such as maybe their source of income, their age, their different things can make up the socioeconomic characteristics that we can identify. These are what we can term as variants, what we can change the independent variable. So I think Goodman Ademola has been able to construct a very good hypothesis from that. Can we have the second one, please?
The second one, please. Yeah. Level of education influences a worker's attitude to work.
Okay.
So how will you react to
in
this?
this case, yes, I'm doing it. I think this by selling OC. Level of education influences a worker's attitude to work. I want to emphasize significance as one of the, like I said earlier, the language of hypothesis. One we expect to see there is a significant influence of level of education on workers' attitude to work. That would be a better construction of an hypothesis and not level of education influences a worker. So there could be a significant influence or significant relationship between level of education and workers' attitude to work. So workers' attitude to work in this case is the dependent variable, while the different level of education are manipulatable, are changeable. That makes them the independent variable. So Selling, you have to work a little more on this particular hypothetical hypothesis you have put forward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akingbemisilu, for
You're welcome.
For helping to panel beat that particular hypothesis. And I'm sure that even for those people who didn't respond, some of them may have this kind of thing in mind, and this will have helped them a lot in standardizing their hypothesis. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is fast spent. I don't know if other questions are coming up. If they are not, it's either one or two things. Okay, another one is coming up, but let me make this statement. It's either one or two things that even with all our explanation, one, that we have been able to demystify that fear about when you say hypothesis. In fact, some people don't want to hear it. Whenever you mention it, it looks like they should run away from the research. Thank you for demystifying it. Very quickly, can you take this question very quickly in some few seconds? What are relations between hypotheses, specific objectives, and research questions?
Good. These three concepts are related. As a matter of fact, they move from each to another. You begin your research from your objective, a main one, then you have some steps which we call specific ones. Now, this could be further interrogated first as a question, now later as an hypothesis. Now, when there is a problem, you have those problems in form of objectives. So they are specific objectives, they are stated, but not as a question or as an hypothesis. So what makes hypothesis different from question, like I said, is that it is statistically tested, but a question is answered. So you are testing an hypothesis significantly. You want to show if there is a significant difference. For instance, there's a difference between the use of this and this, but there is a significant difference between something and something. Now, the significant difference tells us because we are doing it statistically. You are subjecting it to more rigorous statistics that will give us better accuracy to be able to come up with more prediction. For instance, if you say smokers, they used to die, and it may not be the smoking actually that make people to die. So that may answer the question, but may not be statistical. So you take questions further to hypothesis level. But all worries, all problems are highlighted in research objectives. So this is the relationship among these three concepts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akingbemisilu. Our time is fast spent, and I want to appreciate you most sincerely. Ladies and gentlemen, the culture in different profession or different departments or whatever also differ. While some would tell you that you need to take it from question to objective, it is still the same from question to objective rather than from objective to question to hypothesis. It is still allowed as long as the three of them are seeing themselves, they are synergized. effect of each of them is seen in the other, then we are good. Then he has also made a very valid point, which is that testing hypothesis means that you are going beyond percentage and mean. You are using rigorous statistical tool, and those are the ones that have been mentioned behind. I mean, close to the end of the lecture. Gentlemen and ladies, I don't know how we can accommodate other questions. Let's just leave it there. And probably today we are even going to skip our ad for our second ad before the end of the meeting, because we still have essential activities in the program. And I want to appreciate in the watching the YouTube platform. We want to appreciate all of you. I want to say sincerely, in a summary, that the last edition, we have more than 11 countries on board that were part of this program. And today we are recording similar things. This is not a Nigerian program. It's a program that transcends the shores of Nigeria. I can't mention names of everybody on this platform, but you are so much appreciated. In fact, let me give special appreciation to women. My senior colleague, Dr. Simiat Abdul Karim, has always been very consistent, and quite a number of others. I can see so many of my students. I can see so many of my colleagues on this. If I begin to mention it, in fact, we will not leave here. So please pardon me. And we'll now move to the next item on this program, which is very critical before I bring my CEO to do an appreciation, and that is a presentation of certificate to our presenter for today. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to, on behalf of the Researchment Academy, Dr. Akingbemisilu, I don't know if you can be on your feet. It is said that certificate is not taken while sitting down. If you have the opportunity, please stand up so that you can receive your certificate. On behalf of, I'm also standing up to give this certificate, appreciating your presentation, Dr. Abiola Akingbemisilu, in recognition of your exceptional contribution as guest speaker at the March 2024 of the Researchment Academy webinar on this topic that you have presented today, March 8, 2024. We indeed appreciate your coming and your erudity. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's on that note that I will invite, I don't know if I'm jumping the program already, but because of time, the excitement that we have overspent our time is what is making me to rush this up. My CEO,